All right, let's get into this. So today we are looking at, well, a collision, really.
Yeah.
Usually when we do these deep dives, we're synthesizing, a stack of articles or a new book.
Correct. Something cohesive.
But today, the sources are just jarringly different. They don't match.
They really don't. It's a clash of textures. It feels like we walked into a room where a professor is arguing with a panicked student.
That's the perfect visual. On one side, we have this digital text titled 5. 2 weeks is a rounding error. It is cold, it's precise, very structured.
Almost like a piece of code compiled into philosophy.
Exactly. And then smashed right up against it is a handwritten journal entry. It's marked number 15, dated January 24th, 2026.
And the timestamp is there too, which I find incredibly telling. 12:03 p.m.
Right, 12:03 p.m.
Right, 12:03 p.m. It's messy, it's grammatical chaos, and it is just dripping with anxiety. And when you put these two things together, the polished philosophy and the raw panic, it exposes a very specific trap that I think a lot of us fall into.
It's the trap of the professional learner. The professional learner. I like that. But it sounds a bit like an accusation.
In a way it is. I mean, you know the type. Maybe you are the type. You're busy. You're reading the newsletters. You're listening to the deep dives. Like this one, you've got the audiobooks on 2x speed. You feel like you're moving. You're vibrating with information. But if you look at your output, you're standing still.
Oof. Yeah, that hits a little too close to home. So that is the mission for today. We are going to unpack this anonymous writer's journey from vibrating in place to actually building something. And it's not a straight line.
Not at all.
The source material highlights this massive pivot in the person's life moving, from chasing trends like cannabis and crypto to tackling something formidable like deep learning.
And realizing that the curiosity that got them there might actually be the very thing holding them back.
That's a heavy concept we need to get to. Curiosity is camouflage. But before we get there, we have to talk about the fear. Because this journal entry doesn't start with excitement or ambition. It starts with dread.
It starts with memory. Or rather, the loss of it.
The title of the digital source is 2 weeks is a rounding error. Just hearing that, it makes me feel small. It makes a fortnight feel like nothing.
It's designed to. The text opens with a very specific, almost clinical observation. Memory decays quietly. No ceremony. No warning label.
That no warning label line really stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
In movies, when a character forgets something or loses a part of themselves, there's sad music, there's a fade to black, it's dramatic, it's an event.
But in biology, it's silent. It's just entropy. The neural pathways they disconnect. The source text says, one moment feels permanent, next moment archived.
And we see this playing out in real time in the journal. The writer's sitting there at 12:03 p.m., seemingly in the middle of a study session, and they write, 2 weeks and how long before this memory turned into past, just like other faded memory.
It's metacognition-induced panic. They are writing about the act of forgetting while they are trying to remember. They are aware of the leak in the bucket while they are pouring water in.
But here's the thing I want to challenge. We usually assume we forget things because we're lazy.
Right.
We assume we stopped paying attention, or we didn't care enough. But the source text argues the exact opposite.
It does.
It says, direction blurs not because effort stopped, but because effort multiplied without aim.
That is such a critical distinction. Think about a vector in physics. If you have 10 arrows pointing in 10 different directions, the net movement is 0. You exerted a ton of force, but you went nowhere.
So the writer wasn't lazy.
The journal implies they were doing too much. They were consuming information at high velocity, but the text warns that learning accelerates, meaning lags.
Break that down. Meaning lags.
Well, think about how we consume media now. You can listen to this discussion at 2x speed. You can read a summary of a seminal book in 5 minutes. You can accelerate the input.
Right.
But meaning synthesis, that is a biological process. It takes time for the brain to rewire itself, to actually understand a concept. If you accelerate the input but don't give time for the lag, you just get noise.
It's like eating 3 dinners in 10 minutes. You're not nourished, you're just sick.
Exactly. And the past, as the text says, keeps whispering but brings no instructions. You look back at all those books you read last year, and you ask, what do I actually know now? And the answer is often just silence.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of scattershot effort, the journal gives us a really specific look at what this writer was actually spending their time on before this crisis.
Yeah.
And this transition is fascinating. They write, cannabis, crypto, it used to be capstone, but that has changed into deep learning.
This isn't just a change in hobbies. This is a change in the category of interest.
How so?
Look at cannabis and crypto, specifically in the context of the mid-2020s. These are cultural trends. They are markets. Generally, when people get into crypto, they are looking at charts. They are reading news.
Right.
They are looking for the next wave to ride. It's external. You are watching a system.
You're a spectator, essentially. Or a gambler. You're just waiting for the line to go up.
Precisely. But deep learning, that is different. Deep learning is the subset of machine learning based on artificial neural networks. It's linear algebra, it's calculus, it's coding. You can't just watch deep learning, you have to build it.
The journal refers to it as the black box.
Which is a perfect metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
In engineering, a black box is a system where you can see the input and the output, but you have no idea what happens inside.
And that drives this writer crazy. They admit, it was not possible for me to start the project because I couldn't have enough patience.
There's the friction. When they were looking at crypto, they probably felt smart. They knew the lingo. But looking at deep learning, they feel stupid. They are staring at the black box and they don't know how it works.
And the digital source diagnoses this perfectly. It says, the black box stays black, not because it is impossible, but because discomfort was postponed too long.
Discomfort postponed. That is the definition of the modern learning trap. We're so used to user-friendly interfaces and 5 easy steps to master Python videos. We have, allergic reactions to the actual discomfort of not knowing something.
So because the writer didn't want to feel stupid, they just kept learning about it instead of doing it.
Precisely. They kept reading about the box instead of opening it. And that brings us to the most dangerous insight in this entire stack. Insight number 1, curiosity can become camouflage.
I have to be honest, I pushed back on this when I first read it. We are taught from kindergarten that curiosity is a virtue. It's the spark of innovation. How can it be camouflage?
It's a virtue initially. It starts as leverage. It gets you into the room. But the text argues that learning starts as leverage, ends as shelter.
Shelter from what?
From the judgment of reality.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Think about it. As long as you are researching how to start a business, you haven't failed at business.
Yeah.
As long as you are studying the syntax of a coding language, you haven't written a bug. You are safe inside the learning. You can tell your friends, I'm working on this big project, when in reality, you're just reading about it.
So curiosity becomes a bunker. You stack up all these books and tutorials around you to protect yourself from the fact that you haven't actually shipped anything.
The source puts it brutally. Complexity replaces courage.
That's a bumper sticker for my life. Complexity replaces courage.
It's easier to say, oh, I can't launch yet. I need to understand the underlying architecture of the transformer model first, than it is to say, I'm scared this won't work. You complicate the problem to justify your inaction.
And the journal bears this out. The writer says, still, I have more to learn, and it seems that will always be the case. More I learn, more conjecture and criticism follows, but I am still far away from creating knowledge.
Far away from creating knowledge. That is the heartbreaking part. They are getting smarter technically, their vocabulary is improving, but the distance between them and actual creation is growing.
Why does that gap grow? Shouldn't learning more make it easier to create?
You would think so. But the text argues that conjecture grows, criticism sharpens, nothing new is born. When you consume too much without creating, you become a critic. Your taste level exceeds your skill level.
So you look at your own work, realize it's trash compared to the experts you've been studying, and you stop.
Exactly. You become a sophisticated critic on the sidelines. You can point out exactly why everyone else is doing it wrong, but you're not in the game. You're holding a clipboard, not a ball.
This leads right into the second big insight from the text. Knowledge without creation is just hoarding.
We have a very negative, visceral reaction to physical hoarding. You picture a house filled with old newspapers, broken furniture, narrow pathways to walk through.
Right, it's gross, it's chaotic.
But intellectual hoarding is celebrated. We call it being well-read or a polymath. But if that input never transforms into output, if it never leaves your head, functionally, what is the difference between that and the stack of newspapers? It's just occupying space.
That's a harsh comparison. It basically says that being smart isn't enough if you're sterile.
It is harsh. But the source text twists the knife even further. It says, repeating errors with better vocabulary still counts as repetition.
That made me laugh darkly. It reminds me of people, myself included, who go to therapy and learn all the terms. We can explain exactly why we are anxious. We can trace it back to our childhood, but we're still anxious.
That is insight number 3. Failure explained is still failure. The text calls it a sophisticated stall. You feel like you've solved the problem because you've labeled it.
I have procrastination issues due to a fear of failure stemming from perfectionism.
Right, great diagnosis. But are you still procrastinating? Yes. Then the label didn't help. It just gave you a shield. It gave you a way to sound smart while staying stuck.
The text mentions vague wonder here, too. It says, vague wonder delays the inevitable demand for precision.
This brings us back to the black box. Wonder is looking at the box and saying, wow, amazing technology. Precision is opening the box and rewiring the circuit. Eventually, the world demands precision. You can't build a bridge with wonder. You need physics. You need math.
So our writer is stuck. They are hoarding knowledge, hiding behind curiosity, using sophisticated vocabulary to explain their own stalling. But then the journal pivots. There's a turning point. They don't stay in the hole.
They don't, and it comes down to two names.
The journal says, if it was not for Naval and David Deutsch, I would have remained same who repeat the mistake.
These are heavy hitters in the tech and philosophy world.
For the listener who might not be deep in that specific Twitter sphere or reading list, give us a quick download. Why these two? Why not Tony Robbins or a coding instructor?
Let's start with Naval Ravikant. He's an investor and philosopher famous for his almanac. His core thesis is about specific knowledge and leverage. He argues that you don't get wealthy or successful by trading time for money or by doing what everyone else is doing. You do it by building things, code, media, products that work for you while you sleep.
So he's the action guy.
He's the agency guy. He pushes the idea that you can solve your own problems if you stop waiting for permission. He just strips away the excuses.
And David Deutsch. He's the physicist, right?
Yes, at Oxford.
Hi.
He is considered the father of quantum computing. He wrote The Beginning of Infinity. His philosophy is all about explanations. He believes that problems are inevitable, but problems are solvable. And the way we solve them is by creating knowledge-good explanations for how reality works.
So not just memorizing facts.
No. Deutsch hates the idea of humans as just buckets for data. He thinks we are engines of creation. If you understand Deutsch, you realize that not knowing isn't a sin. It's just a problem waiting for a new explanation.
That explains the shift in the journal's tone. The writer goes from feeling crushed by memory loss to, well, almost optimistic. They write, the beginning of infinity paves the path to unlock the potential which cannot be perceived without knowledge that has yet to be discovered.
It's a bit wordy. It is a journal entry after all. They're working it out on the page. But the sentiment is beautiful. They are realizing that they can't see the future yet because they haven't built the ladder to get there.
I love that image. Potential which cannot be perceived. It's like standing at the bottom of a mountain. You can't see the view from the top. And you can't learn what the view looks like by reading a brochure. You have to climb.
And you have to trust that the view exists, even if you can't see it yet. That is the beginning of infinity. It's the belief that knowledge is limitless, but only if you create it.
And this brings us to the final conflict in the text, which wraps this whole journey up, the past versus the future.
The digital source has a warning here. Time spent decoding the past taxes the future.
Taxes the future, economics again.
We have limited attention capital. Every minute you spend reminiscing or replaying your mistakes or trying to archive your memories so they don't fade, that is a minute you are not using to build the next thing.
It's an opportunity cost.
A massive one. The text says, infinity does not open with nostalgia. It opens when unfinished knowledge stops being admired and starts being built.
It stops being admired. That goes back to the curiosity trap. Stop admiring the complexity of deep learning. Stop admiring the black box. Break it open.
It's the difference between being a fan and a player. The writer realized that with crypto, they were a fan. They were sitting in the stands. With deep learning, they have to become a player. They have to get on the field.
The journal writer seems to make a choice. They write, someday there won't be enough time to reminisce about past because the future has more to offer.
That is a declaration of war against their own anxiety. They are choosing to let the memories fade if it means they have space to create something new.
Is letting go of the hoarding.
Exactly. You can't hold on everything. If you try to carry all your past selves with you, you're too heavy to move forward. You have to be willing to let 2 weeks be a rounding error so that the next 2 weeks can be a breakthrough.
So, bringing this all back to the listener, we've looked at the anxiety of the journal, the surgical precision of the text. It seems like the core message here is about the difference between the verb to learn and the verb to create.
We treat them as synonyms in our culture, but they are opposites. Learning is absorption. Creation is a mission. You cannot substitute one for the other. You can learn about painting for 10 years, study every brushstroke of the masters, but until you put paint on canvas, you are not a painter. You are just a critic with a library card.
And the scary part, the reason we stay in learning mode, is because creation guarantees failure. If I paint, it might be ugly.
It will be ugly.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
Maybe. But that's the point. As we learned today, failure acted upon is data. It tells you what to fix. Failure explained, sitting in your room thinking about why you might fail, is just a stall. The journal writer says, I am still far away from creating knowledge, but by writing that down, by acknowledging the influence of Deutsch and Naval, they are actually taking the first step. They are identifying the black box and realizing the only way in is through the discomfort.
It reminds me of the final haunting line from the source. The future keeps knocking, while the past keeps whispering, and neither brings instructions.
That's the reality check. We're all waiting for an instruction manual. We're waiting for a mentor or a boss or a podcast host to tell us, okay, you're ready now, you've read enough, go start.
But that permission slip is never coming.
Never. The universe doesn't hand out instructions. It hands out raw materials and time. And as we saw, the time is a rounding error. It disappears whether you use it or not.
So you have to write the instructions yourself.
You have to build the machine without the manual. That is the only way the black box opens. That is the only way you stop being a learner and start being a builder.
That is a sobering thought, but also kind of freeing. We started this deep dive looking at a stranger's messy journal entry from 2026, and we ended up staring in the mirror. It's so easy to get lost in the noise of information, to feel like if we just read one more article, we'll be ready. But the sources today are screaming at us. You are never going to feel ready. The discomfort is the signal to start.
That's right. If you aren't uncomfortable, you aren't learning. You're just reviewing.
So here is the final thought to carry with you today. The source told us that the past whispers and the future knocks, but neither brings instructions. If the instructions aren't coming, what is the one thing, the one uncomfortable black box thing you're going to build today to stop the whispering?
Don't just learn about it, build it.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.